To talk more about our top story, we're joined by Lucile Marbeau of the International Committee of the Red Cross. Lucile, thanks very much for speaking to us this evening. You and I spoke yesterday live on air about this being a complex operation. Of course, the release of Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinians who are detained in Israel. We spoke about it being fragile, delicate. That has been illustrated today. Hamas saying that the hostage handover has ultimately been delayed. Does your organisation know any more about that at this stage?
More upon this, and it's really now up to the parties to resume talks. And the International Committee of the Red Cross, of course, remains ready to continue the kind of operations, the release operations that we carried out yesterday, once there is a green light, an agreement upon between the parties.
I mean, Hamas has evoked the lack of or not enough aid trucks being allowed to enter northern Gaza. Several aid groups have spoken about the number of trucks getting in being ultimately a drop in the ocean. Walk us through what your organisation is seeing on the ground, because we know that there are real needs in Gaza as we speak.
The needs are absolutely overwhelming in Gaza today. And of course, we need massive assistance and supplies to be able to get as soon as possible into the Gaza Strip. The needs are multiple. It's food, water, really basic needs. People still living out in the streets. Winter is coming, so there's also need of shelter, of supplies for the families. And we also have to remember that it's more than 1.5 million of people who have fled their homes, who are displaced in Gaza, and who really need their basic needs to be met today. And the other situation, which is absolutely tragic, is regarding the medical facilities and infrastructure. I mean, hospitals in the north have almost collapsed, and the south is also near collapse, as there's a massive influx of wounded and patients who are coming from the north. In one single day, it was the day before yesterday, 800 patients arrived from the north. And we have colleagues working at the European Gaza Hospital, which is in Khan Younes, and who basically had to completely arrange new spaces because the numbers were so overwhelming, not enough space anymore in the hospital. So they had to use 2 neighboring schools to be able to have a space of triage and really only bring into the hospital the most critically wounded. And what our colleagues are seeing is really heartbreaking, because many patients wounded haven't received any treatment since a few days.
I mean, Lucile, you touched on that there. Hospitals hit, refugee camps hit, schools as well. In terms of finding the space, it must be incredibly complex, because there's little left that's not rubble.
So it is, let's say, since the beginning of the ceasefire, it is some respite, of course, for the civilians. I mean, the sky is clear. They're no longer hearing hostilities. So it is better, of course, a ceasefire. And they are finding a bit of relief, but in the same time, very saddening when some are able to go back to their neighborhoods. And as you were saying, seeing that it's absolute rubble. So, of course, we hope to be able to see with the ceasefire in the coming days, hoping really that this is going to hold, is to be able to get supplies in, but also see how we can fix some of the infrastructure, which is necessary for the civilian population. Electricity, water, and of course, much needed medical supplies, because what our colleagues are saying, we have a surgical team, they're saying that they don't have the necessary supplies to be able to treat the wounded properly. And what I wanted to say is the patients who weren't able to receive the necessary treatment in the north, basically their wounds got so much worse that they are carrying out too many amputations currently. And they are absolutely overwhelmed. So there needs to be not only medical supplies coming in, but we also need staff to be able to come in and respond just to the overwhelming need of the different patients.
Lucille, just a final question for you, and we hear this overwhelming need. If this second round of hostages is released this evening or at some stage in exchange for the Palestinians who are held in Israel, what kind of help, what kind of assistance will the ICRC be offering during that swap?
So the ICRC is called upon by the parties to implement basically the agreements between themselves for these release operations, and they call upon us because we're a neutral intermediary. So yesterday what happened is that we had 8 colleagues, 4 cars, to go and find the hostages and bring them to safety and finally to their families. And we had also a doctor on board in case there was an immediate need of treatment. And what they were telling us is to which point the first thing people needed was reassurance, comfort. And they could see in their eyes the glimmer of hope when they saw the Red Cross. So this was really the first attention, is, let's say, the basic human touch. And they were so relieved also, of course, because once they were in the ICRC cars, they knew they were free. And they knew that they were finally going to be able to see their relatives in Israel and different countries. And also the same thing for the Palestinian detainees, of course, the 33 Palestinian detainees who finally, for some of them, after a long time, finally are seeing their families. And we think, of course, of all the children and teenagers who finally are reunited with their family members.
Indeed. Lucile Marbeau of the International Committee of the Red Cross, thanks very much for speaking to us this evening.